Peace, and welcome to another episode of the Quranic Remedies, where we spend about 15 minutes exploring a page from the Quran together and seeing how we can apply the verses to our lives. And hopefully, with God's permission, it helps us heal our brain, body, mind, and soul. So today we'll be reading from chapter 4, The Woman, from verses 27 to 33. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge to God from the accursed devil. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful. والله يريد أن يتوب عليكم ويريد الذين يتبعون الشهوات أن تميلوا ميلا عظيما. God intends to redeem you, but those who follow their desires want you to turn away utterly. يريد الله أن يخفف عنكم وخلق الإنسان ضعيفا. God intends to lighten your burden, for the human being was created weak. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل إلا أن تكونوا تجارة عن تراض منكم ولا تقتلوا أنفسكم إن الله كان بكم رحيما. O you who believe, do not consume each other's wealth illicitly, but trade by mutual consent. And do not kill yourselves, for God is merciful towards you. ومن يفعل ذلك عدوانا وظلما فسوف نصليه نارا وكان ذلك على الله يسيرا. Whoever does that, out of hostility and wrongdoing, we will cast him into a fire, and that would be easy for God. إن تجتنبوا كبائر ما تنهون عنه نكفر عنكم سيئاتكم وندخلكم مدخلا كريما. If you avoid the worst of what you are forbidden, we will remit your sins and admit you by a gate of honor. ولا تتمنوا ما فضل الله به بعضكم على بعض للرجال نصيب مما اكتسبوا وللنساء نصيب مما اكتسبن واسألوا الله من فضله إن الله كان بكل شيء عليما. Do not covet what God has given to some of you in preference to others. For men is a share of what they have earned, and for women is a share of what they have earned. And ask God of his bounty. God has knowledge over everything. ولكل جعلنا موالي مما ترك الوالدان والأقربون والذين عقدت أيمانكم فأتوهم نصيبهم إن الله كان على كل شيء شهيدا. To everyone we have assigned beneficiaries in what is left by parents and relatives. Those with whom you have made an agreement, give them their share. God is witness over all things. Sadaqallahu Azim. God the Great said the truth. Last episode, we were talking about how God is giving us certain conditions so that when we are falling in certain things in regards to the need of companionship and more so people that you want to engage in sexual activity, God is saying that if you cannot afford the free women or women that have been established, then you have the option of almost having like a legal girlfriend with the permission of her parents and a contract in place where you do not need to put a big number up front, or you do not need to pay a dowry per se, but she's not your full wife at that point. And God is saying that if you wait, that it's better for you, and that God is guiding us to the traditions of the people that came before us, where it's almost the youngings, they have an option to deal with these urges that the human being has. God tells us here clearly that he is intending to save us from these sins. While the people who have this lust in their heart, they have this way of trying to convince you and to seduce you, they want you to follow your desires and want you to turn away utterly. In this day and age, it's not wrong to tell somebody that you're enjoying their company, where the talk can get a little explicit that, hey, I want to have a contract in place and I want people to witness this contract. I can't afford a marriage right now. I can't be with you in a full state, but I want people to recognize that me and you are together. So I want to write a contract between us, and if she has guardianship, you will ask for her parents' permission to do so, where you will try to take on as many bills and help her as much as you can with whatever's available to you. But now you have access to her, and she is technically somebody that is legal for you. Should be somebody that holds your oath. This is not something that people tend to do, and they don't utilize this. And unfortunately, a lot of people end up falling into following the desires and fulfilling and satisfying the person that's in front of them. Yes, when it comes down to relationships, especially with one that is of like your spouse, you end up sometimes wanting to please that person more than you sticking to the rules of God. and you start to favor them and preference them just out of the love. And it's not that you are minimizing God or you're moving away from God, but it's just this thing in our heart where it's difficult for us to say no to certain people, especially the people that you love. And that's why God states that we were created weak. We are weak in the sense that we fall into our lusts or we follow into our vices quickly. And it's easy for us to find the sin and kind of go through the sin despite us kind of knowing that it's bad. It's just because of this weakness. So God is giving you a way to make it legal so you don't fall into a sin. And this is why God wants us to learn from what God has given us so that we do not lose God in whatever we're trying to achieve or whatever we are needing in our life, especially when it comes down to companionship. And by the way, when you come down to the concept of pleasing your spouse, and sometimes you try to please them over God, this is actually mentioned in the Quran in regards to the Prophet. The Prophet himself, he forbade something on himself is just to please his wife, because I guess it had something to do with her as well. And God is saying to him, why are you banning or why are you forbidding on yourself what God has made legal, trying to satisfy your wife? So it is always sometimes where you do have somebody where you share these emotions or you share this love, where you might sometimes cross certain boundaries just because out of that love for that person, but you shouldn't cross certain limits where at that point you become extremely sinful. You should not consummate whatever would be a marriage if there was a marriage contract. You shouldn't be having intercourse. You shouldn't be committing to things where it is the sacred bond between a man and a woman that needs to have a contract in place for it to happen. God intends to lighten the burden because he knows our burdens. He knows the things that can pull us under very quickly, and he knows the things that is pertaining to us and what we require and our desires. God is giving us an exit, and this is truly amazing from our Lord, the Lord of the worlds. God is telling us as well that it's very important for us to recognize that we are not here to hustle each other. There are people that come up with strategies and schemes and lies and donations and all sorts of things is just so that they would be stealing from their brothers and sisters. Yes, there's also hypocrites that try to pretend to be part of the community, knowing that the community has to give from what they have been given, and therefore they put themselves in a position to be able to steal what these people give in the name of God, their purifications. This is a great sin, but here God is talking more so about the people who are believers that claim to be believers, and God is addressing them, "O you who believed." So do not try to hustle each other and eat each other's wealth illicitly. But sometimes if the trade you are favoring somebody or somebody is almost, it sounds like they're taking advantage of you, if you're a person who agreed, they both agreed, mutually agreed, then it's binding on you because these agreements is something that's important. But being lied to and then you getting agreed to something that was a lie, that's different. When you are both upfront to what the sale is and somebody agrees, and that's it, the agreement is there. And we shouldn't be killing each other. This is kind of clear. So God is equating how trading somebody's wealth and killing somebody like from each other, like these are something that God opted to put in the verse side by side. It's almost like you are killing the person when you're stealing from them, especially their wealth, eating their other's wealth, consuming each other's wealth illicitly. And yes, we see in this day and age, this is something that is happening often by the governments and what people have. Yes, they're not believers, but they have set up systems where people tend to try to copy them, and then we end up in certain positions where now in the world, like even in the West, if you have a house and you owe the house and it's paid off and everything's there and you're living in the house, and now you are unemployed and you do not have a means to make a lot of money, and the tax season comes around and now you have to pay the tax for your house which you own. If you don't pay the tax in a few years, then they take your house, so you never truly owned it. These are ways that you're eating each other's wealth illicitly. So this is not something that the Muslim should be doing to each other. And all praise to the merciful Lord. Now, whoever is actually going around eating people's monies illicitly or killing people. So the verse here, it's saying, and whoever does that, وَمَنْ يَفْعَلُ ذَلِكَ. Okay, so ذَلِكَ could be understood as killing each other. And if you kill somebody in hostility and wrongdoing, then God will cast them into fire. But one can make the argument that it's actually applying to each case, so both of them. So on the surface level, someone would appreciate it as the one talking about murder. It's just because udwanan wa dhulma. But udwanan wa dhulma can also be accepted to where God is telling us about the eating the people's money in falsehood, because that would still be technically hostility and wrongdoing. And whoever is doing that, they're going to have a really terrible punishment. So these sins are not easy. And God is telling us that if you avoid the big crimes, the worst crimes, where there are ones that are clearly listed, to disobey the prophet or to disobey the messenger on purpose, or to associate to God what God has not brought down any authority, association, or idolatry. This is something that is extremely big. To commit adultery, cheating on your spouse, this is another big one, and murder, this is another big one. And of course, there are some that are considered big where God is not listing them, but it's understood for them to be big because God has touched on the points, but he never called them a big sin like those three that I just listed. God is telling you that if you avoid that and what you are forbidden, like the most of it, then God will definitely forgive you and you will find yourself in a very lovely place. Now, the next verse is something that is extremely understandable. And for somebody who understands why we have the bounty of God or the favor of God, God favors certain people for a certain blessing because it's specific to them. To try to covet what other people have, this is not the way forward, because jealousy and the building of this arrogance or building this entitlement because you think that you deserve it, then you're in trouble. But notice what God is saying here, that the men have a share for what they have earned. The way that you earn a share in this world is by your good works, by your good deeds, by you working on yourself, by you clearing your thoughts and handling things in a positive manner. This is going to give you what you have earned here as a share. And just because somebody else has more than you or different than you, which you would like to have, you have to also be content that it was by your choices and by circumstances why you are where you are. So you have to be accepting of what God has decreed for you in that moment. God is capable of changing your environment, changing your situation, and you might get more of what you have earned in other places or at other times as long as you keep going with what you need to do. And God tells us to ask him for the bounty. So we need to be able to have absolutely no problem asking God for him to improve us, improve our situation, or to even going as far as to asking him to increase us from his favor, from his blessings. So you could tell God, and God, if he chooses to answer, and God is extremely merciful and he is extremely clement, so he knows what you mean. You can clearly ask God that, God, increase me on the day of judgment. Please give me an action or a favor that if I complete it, it will help me on the day of judgment. And this is something that we should constantly be searching for, because that's the true way of understanding what it means to be rich, not self-sufficient, but somebody who has a lot of value. To everyone, we have assigned beneficiaries. So when you die, you've already know that you have to give your parents, you have to give your kids, that's your spouses, certain times your brothers and sisters. There's a lot of what God has already explained to us on how to deal with these beneficiaries. Beneficiaries. And these individuals, right? God is telling us that you sometimes are the beneficiary. You are the person who excuse me. You are the person who is going to be taking some of what was given. But God is telling you to also spread it among your community, especially with people that you have oaths with. Give them their due share. Give them their rights. Give them what they deserve. Now, this is something that we always have to keep in mind. It's not about the material wishes that you're always chasing, but rather it's the expenditure or giving this blessing that God has given you to others. To split it up and give a little bit to people who truly matter to you because you have an oath with them. You have an agreement with them. What does that agreement entail? That's for you to understand. It's for you to know. But you should always respect them and you should always give from what God has given you to them outside of what you have already agreed. Because you want to raise these people as people who are conscious of God, that they will do the right thing. And it does not matter that if what in their position is they see it as a slave or a nanny compared to somebody who's a CEO who understands this mentality. There is truly no difference when it comes down to approaching these kind of matters. The people who have an oath with you, you have a duty towards them. And the people who are giving you the oath, they have a duty towards you. So when you really do want to respect these individuals, you should take them as a family, like truly, like these are your brothers and your sisters in faith, and these are your brothers and sisters that help you, assist you in what you need to be assisted in. These verses right here, what we're looking at is how God is teaching us things that are going to improve our mentality, what we need to be looking for. There are things in this world which it makes it difficult for us to get along with because purely we know it's sinful, but there is a way where it becomes legal. For example, sexual intercourse. Just having sex with random people is completely forbidden, it's completely evil, and you would be destroying yourself in the long run if you keep doing such things. But on the other hand, getting a proper contract and putting something in place and showing it and being honest with it, then at that point you're saving yourself from something that is illegal. You make it legal because you are taking the procedures that God has told you to take. And you will notice that your life will actually be a lot better when you start to stick to these rules of God, because these rules is not for God. It's not about entering heaven is why these rules are there. These rules are for you as a human being to become a person for as a result you get to heaven in the grace of God. We also have to also keep in mind is that we shouldn't be looking at what other people have and start to covet it. You just work towards what you want to achieve, and if it comes along the way, then that you're happy, that means that you're good and you're happy. Even if it doesn't come, you still have heaven as long as you're sticking to what you need to do. But God clearly tells you here, these verses are extremely clear to the person who wants to read it and understand. Okay, when you covet, God is telling you no, but for each man is a share of what they have earned, and for a woman is a share of what they have earned. So are you actually earning in this world? Are you actually earning for your hereafter? Are you putting the right seeds and putting the right information in your brain for you to be able to travel in the land in a way that is humble and good, and you remember your God often, because God is the one who is guiding you to the truth, and God is the one who is going to get you safely to your destination. And with that said, I hope you guys are enjoying these. All praise to the Lord of the worlds. Peace be upon you.